There have been many great people who have impacted history, whether it was George Washington, who was not only a great war general, but also set the standard for all of our future leaders to abide by, or there's Michael Jordan, who is revered as one of the greatest basketball players of all time and also has a $1 million sportswear industry to prove it. Now, chances are if you live in the US or anywhere else in the world, you've probably heard of the man Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is the centerpiece of the Catholic religion, and he's had a pretty interesting life, if I do say so myself. I'm here to tell you about Jesus' life, his impact on history, and his impact on society today. Now, what better place to start talking about Jesus' life than our favorite holiday, Christmas? Christmas is the day that us Catholics celebrate as the day of Jesus' birth. But what if I was to tell you that Jesus may not have been born on Christmas? In fact, research says that may have been born mid to late September to October. Why is that so? Well, according to Bible commentator Adam Clark, it was customary for the Jews to send their sheep to the pasture from the spring until early October. So that means during the winter they kept their sheep in barns and tended to them in there. But how would they have been able to see the North Star if they were taking care of their sheep in the barns? Now, my second point is some of the most famous miracles that he performed, and those include the resurrection of Lazarus, the multiplication of fish and bread, the walking on water, and the wedding at Cana. Not to mention the man was also able to hold water in his cloak. Bet you can't do that. But anyways, now we're going to move on to probably one of his famous miracles, which is actually a holiday that we celebrate, and it's Easter. Easter is the day that Jesus rose from the dead, Easter Sunday. But what they don't tell you is what happened in between the time of Good Friday when he died and to the resurrection on Easter Sunday. Well, in the book of Matthew, verse 27, line 45, he says, "From noon until 3 in the afternoon, darkness came all over the land." So, that's what happened. Darkness rose over the land and earthquakes started to happen. Now, that's pretty much Jesus' nutshell in life. It is time for me to move on to my next main point, his effect on history. We're going to start with the Crusades. And according to American International, the Crusades were a series of military expeditions promoted by the papacy during the Middle Ages, initially aimed at taking the Holy Land for Christendom. So pretty much a dumbified version of what I just said was the Pope didn't like that the Muslims had control over the Holy Land, so he told Christians to go over there and take it from them. And that resulted in years and years of wars and bloodshed. My next sub-point is the Bible was the first ever book printed on the printing press. So I'm sure you guys may have heard of Johannes Gutenberg. He was the inventor of the printing press, and the first book he ever printed was the Bible. Why he chose the Bible is because it was originally written in Latin, and at the time that was a very misunderstood language. So he translated it to German, which was a very common language amongst the people, and that helped spread Christianity throughout the world. And that brings me to my next point, the Roman persecution of Catholics. So, according to Dr. Sophie Lunn Rockcliffe, Christians were the first and horribly targeted persecution as a group by the Emperor Nero in 64 AD. Now, I wasn't able to find a death toll since it lasted so many years, but I was able to sort of narrow how long it lasted because I found my source said it lasted almost 1,260 years. It's a long time. A lot of bloodshed. Now my next main point is the effect on society today. Now the very first point I'm going to bring up is the Pope. And the Pope was actually a position appointed by Jesus to St. Peter and is just carried on throughout the ages, and it still lives on today. Our current Pope is Pope Francis. You may have heard of him. And my next sub-point after that is Christianity is the largest religion in the world. So how it went from us being executed back in the Roman time to us being the largest religion, I'm not too sure how that happened. But according to BBC News, there are an estimated 1.2 billion Roman Catholics in the world. According to Vatican figures, and more than 40% of the world's Catholics live in Latin America, but Africa has seen the biggest growth in Catholic congregations in recent years. So pretty much a lot of growth in a lot of time, in a little bit of time. But that's about all I have to say on Jesus' life, his effect on history, and his effect on society today.